All right, so now that my Starry Night Van Gogh inspired sky is finished, I am going to use a dark green strip of paper and a lighter green strip of paper to create the middle ground. And remember, the middle ground goes in the middle of your page. So we're gonna start with the darker one first, and we're just going to kind of tear a wiggly line. Doesn't have to be anything perfect, just to make some hills. Okay, so that's gonna go there. And then with the lighter green, we want it to be smaller because we're gonna overlap it. So instead of tearing up here, I'm just gonna go like that. And then I'm gonna glue both of those to my background. Then in the foreground and the middle ground, we're gonna be drawing some pumpkins that are big, medium, and small. So remember, bigger things go in the front or the foreground of our picture. So my first pumpkin is gonna fill up most of this rectangle. So I'm gonna start with an oval in the center. And I'm drawing this with Sharpie first, but if you wanna start with pencil first, that's okay. And then I'm gonna draw 2 bumps on each side. And then a little stem at the top. And there we go. So that's my biggest pumpkin. And then my next pumpkin, I want to make sure it's smaller than this. So this oval is about this big. Now I wanna make it smaller, about that big. And then my smallest pumpkin, I want it to be, the oval should be maybe like 2 fingers long, because he's going in the background. Okay, so I've got big, medium, small. If you want to add more big ones as well, or more medium or small, you can go for it. But the minimum you should have is 3. Then I'm gonna use the color sticks, and I want to find a dark green, or sorry, not green, a dark orange, a medium orange, and a light orange. Or you could use yellow instead of light orange. Okay, so I'm gonna start with my darkest orange, and I'm gonna color about 1/3 of my pumpkin. So I have 1, 2, 3 thirds. This part is gonna be dark orange. And if you get out of the lines a little bit, it's okay, because we're gonna be cutting these out. Okay, and then I'm gonna get my medium orange, and I'm gonna color the next third of my pumpkin. And you see how I'm kind of leaving this line jagged? I'm not coloring like a stripe across. That jagged line actually helps us blend our colors a little bit better. And the last one is my light orange or yellow. And then you can color your stem green or brown or whatever you want. So there's my biggest pumpkin, and then I'm gonna repeat that for the medium and the small. And since we used our shading, it looks more 3-dimensional. So now I'm gonna cut these pumpkins out and glue them to my landscape. So now you get to decide where your pumpkins go, but make sure that your biggest pumpkin is somewhere in the foreground because he is the closest to us. So I'm not gonna put him way back here. I'm gonna put him close to the bottom of the page. And then the medium-sized pumpkin should be somewhere in the middle ground. And then the tiny pumpkins should be somewhere way in the background. Now to make these look even more three-dimensional, you're gonna use your Sharpie again, and we're gonna draw some shadows underneath our pumpkins. So my moon is up here in the right corner, so my shadows are gonna be going this way. And if that's really confusing for you, it's okay, you can just draw your shadow underneath your pumpkin, okay? So I'm gonna start with a kind of like squished oval shape under my pumpkins. You can make them kind of longer than your pumpkin. So make sure your shadow goes out nice and long, because if it's just like a little bitty shadow, it won't really look right. So make sure they're nice and long, and then go ahead and color it all the way in. Make sure when you're coloring your shadows, it doesn't look scribbly like this, because that doesn't look as much like a shadow as it does when it's filled in all the way. And then very, very last today, we're going to be using some oil pastels. I'm gonna choose a light green and a dark green. And I'm gonna make some vines around my pumpkin. So these vines, I wanna kind of mimic those swirls that we painted in the sky. So I'm gonna start up here. I'm just kind of gonna swirl them around, kind of around my pumpkins, wherever they're sitting. You can add some leaves. All right, so when you are finished today, you can put it on the drying rack and clean up your table.